Perfect. So welcome to the Travel Unity Summit. For those who aren't familiar, we are a nonprofit. We focus on diversifying the travel industry through individual and community empowerment. These are our website links. Please feel free to visit them, especially the donate one. That's how we're able to put on the summit and also do programs throughout the year to kind of educate people about travel and whatnot. The next slide. So again, if you're not familiar, we are Travel Unity, and this year's summit theme is about DEI in action, advancing travel together. Our online sessions are going from today up to the 29th. And for those who can make it to Lake Placid, I will be there in person. If you want to meet me or Ronnie or any of the Travel Unity members in person, we will be at Lake Placid from November 4th through the 7th. Hopefully we can all see you there. We do want to thank Roost, who's our hosting sponsor for the in-person sessions. Thank you, Roost. These are our silver sponsors. Again, thank you for MMGY. They worked with us earlier in the year to launch I'm going to mispronounce everything, but the Vistas Latinas study on Latinx community and travelers. So thank you again, MMGY, for working with us on this. And our bronze sponsors, again, we have amazing Thailand. Oh, by the way, speaking of Thailand, the country's opening up November 1 to vaccinated travelers from approved countries. So if you miss traveling to Asia, Thailand is definitely should be on your radar. We're opening November 1. Also want to thank Tor Cayuga, and Karen's also on this. She's not on the panel, but she's in attendance. So if you ever make it out there, definitely hit up Karen. And thank you for being a bronze sponsor.
Karen will also be in Lake Placid with us too, for what it's worth.
Nice. You got the next slide. To see our, the next two slides are other sponsors. I won't name all of them, but check out their logos. Great. Now I'm gonna hand it off to your moderator, Carylann from SYTA. Take it away.
Great, thanks so much. And I'm definitely not on mute, right? Since that seems to be the question that everybody asks, is I'm good. So I just want to thank you guys so much for having us this afternoon, Ronnie and your team. And Rami, it was a great day. I was able to participate in some of the sessions, and I really enjoyed the various viewpoints. It was extremely inclusive, and I learned a lot throughout the day. So I'm hoping during our discussion now we can reflect on some of the things that we heard, but also, really focus in on the organizations that are in tourism. And just a little bit about myself. I'm with SYTA, the Student and Youth Travel Association, and the SYTA Youth Foundation. And I've been with the organization about 11 years now. I started my career in hospitality, actually, in a sales office at the Mayflower Hotel in Washington, D.C. Like many people in travel, I didn't get a degree in tourism. I had never thought about being in travel, but I graduated from school and thought, you know what, there's this beautiful hotel. I don't know what I want to do. And I fell into it and have stayed in the travel industry for most of my career. I've worked both at hotels on property. I've worked in national sales offices. I've worked in the association community doing meetings and events. And I also worked at Virginia Tech and the University of Virginia, where I was able to manage conferences and events. So I feel like I've been in the industry for some time, but I really found a home with SYTA. We introduced travel to young people. So all of those motor coach buses you might see, and kids who are taking their 8th grade trip or their 6th grade trip, or they are in the marching band, we have an opportunity to really introduce travel to young people, and it's a really special place. So just want to give you a little bit of background about myself. What I want to do during the time together is talk with both Portia and Joan about their personal experiences in DEI, as well as the organizations that they represent. I'd like to say that we've got quite an alphabet soup of organizations that work in tourism, from SYTA to USTOA to ASTA to ITMI, every acronym, and then many other kinds of organizations. And we all represent a segment of the tourism industry, and we have an incredible opportunity to advance the dialogue around DEI, especially with those that we represent. But I think really our power is in how we all work together as one group. And I want to again compliment Travel Unity for bringing so many organizations together and really building on our individual organizations. So with that, I'd like to introduce Portia and give her an opportunity to talk a little bit about her story and then her place within her organization. Portia, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm really, really happy to be here and to be allowed to be on this panel today. I think it's, it's really good conversation that we should continue to have. Hello, everybody. My name is Portia Conerly, and I am the Director of Sales for the Arlington Convention and Visitor Service. I have been with Arlington County now for about 16 years. It continues to be a very interesting journey. Just to give you a little background about myself, I am originally from New Orleans. A lot of people can kind of figure that out. If you've ever visited there, you will notice that, it's one of those cities that's very welcoming. We treat everybody like their family. It doesn't matter who you are, your background, what you do, that's just our culture there. So even though in about 2001, I moved to the DC area, that's still who I am. I started in the tourism industry in around 1990. So with a company called New Orleans Tours. So I have seen a lot, I've experienced a lot, I have grown a lot. And I wanted to be a part of this session to really share just different experience and thoughts, and hopefully I'll be able to learn a few things from others. So that's my quick intro. I'll save the rest for a little later.
That's great. And Joan?
So my name is Joan Keddell, and I'm currently president of the International Tour Management Institute, which is a very long title. It's a 46-year-old company that came into existence in 1976. For me, though, I'm going to give my age away. I started in travel in 1979. I look back and I go, oh my God. I told my parents I wanted to travel the world and make people happy. And I was told then it was not going to happen, but I think I was able to find all sorts of different ways. So I started out in hotels. I became a general manager, which was kind of a crazy thing to do, but moved on, and I've been district sales for a cruise line. I've worked on board as an officer on board a cruise ship. So you name it, I've been in the travel industry for a long time. My greatest joy right now is I've been a part of ITMI for the last 20 years, president for about the last 7 or 8 years. I can't remember when it was, but what I get to do now is help people find their dream travel position and what do they really want to do in this life. And I think the pandemic has helped all of us kind of realize, or the world realize, how important travel is and how important all of our jobs are in bringing the world closer together.
That's great. And I appreciate both you and Portia again joining us this afternoon. And I wanted to share a little bit about our individual stories. As I mentioned, we all come to travel from different perspectives, and it really is, it gets in your blood, it becomes a part of our lives, and we have such an important role to play. But also, I'd love to ask a question from those on the call this afternoon, and you could react to it. But how many of you are part of a membership organization or another association? If you want to hit the reaction button and just let me know if many of you belong to different organizations. Okay. And another question I'd like to follow up on is, how many of those organizations are currently in a stage of looking at DEI or sustainability? I see some heads nodding. I think there are a lot of organizations where they're really taking a look at their organization, their membership, and really addressing a lot of these critical issues. So today on the call, we're going to share how our individual organizations are approaching DEI, as well as talking with you about where you are maybe in that journey with your organization. But first, Portia, I'd like you to share the story. When we were preparing for this afternoon, you shared a story about your journey with Arlington County and really how crucial and how it got you to where you are today.
I was going to say, which story, Caroline? I have thousands of stories.
I
Where
know,
do you want me to
that's
start?
true.
We don't have all day. Well, my overall story with Arlington County is I've been there now for about 16 years. It has not been an easy journey. I think because I've been in tourism so long, because that's just my passion. You know, you'll come out, you'll try something new, you realize this is where I'm supposed to be. But what has always, for like many others, has amazed me from starting, and we're not talking about today, just because this is what we're talking about, but back when is I don't see myself. I don't see women. I'm starting to now, right? I've talked about it so much. And I've recently, over the last maybe 2 years, I see, there are more women in positions, there are more people of color, but it's a struggle. And it's a hard thing to explain, especially if that is not, your world or your fight. It's the constant doubting of what I know I can do or my abilities. Tourism, I went to college for it. That's what I do. But for so long, I was always just, you can do this, but no, we don't have anybody in that position, or we're not going to. And I could never understand that. And those that know me and my personality, I refuse to give up. So as far as Arlington County, it's been, and they're doing a much better job. Just a few years ago, we started getting into DEI, which I was excited about. I've been pushing for it for a very long time. When I started with the county, I said I was going to work my way up to even just prove a point. I said, okay, well, if I can't come in at the managerial levels, I will work my way up. And that's what I did. I actually started, even though I had director positions before Arlington County, I started at the Arlington Convention and Visitor Center when we had a visitor center, right? And I worked my way up. Started visitor center. I said, I'm going to learn the product. I'm going to learn the destination, and I'm going to move up. Next job, I then went into the office. I became sales manager. Then I became destination sales manager. And then finally, what opened up was, long story short, my director, Emily Cassell, had an opportunity to try something else within the office. I was approached by the director of Arlington Economic Development at the time to act as the director. Wonderful, absolutely loved it. Perfect fit. It worked out though, where my director decided to come back. But at that time, I felt it was the right time for me to say, I'm doing all the work of a director of sales. Why am I not the director of sales? Right? So I kept thinking about it. Then I had a problem with it. And then I started asking, what is the problem? I could prove, we had been for, I don't know, that's how 13, 14 years in a row, #1 for Virginia economic spending. I've been there all those years, working my tail off, but was never given that title for doing the work. I've always been the only salesperson for 16 years. I'm the only salesperson for Arlington, Virginia. Okay. You think about that. So that tells you how hard I work. So I said, so I went to management one day finally, and I said, I think it's time. And this is exactly what I did. I said, I either am going to be looked at to be the director of sales, or I'm leaving. I was very serious about that. What happens is sometimes when you're put in an acting role, like I was for Arlington Convention Visitor Service, people will then see you, right? Because at that time you are now put up, so you're being exposed to the tourist world. And so that's what happened. So people are like, oh my goodness, oh, you're the director. I said, well, that's just temporary. So then I could not take no for an answer. And so I approached management and they said, okay. I was shocked because there has never been a Black woman in the history. And that doesn't, for something like, oh, that's nothing. No, that's a big deal. For Arlington County has never had anything Black for director of sales, but a Black woman being a director of sales. My last point to that is this. Once I was given that title, doing the work, I experienced something with an individual because at once I got there, I'm like, okay, this is great. I'm going to do the work. It was lovely. But then I started getting discouraged because, same fight, just fighting the same battles of, going everywhere. It's just me. It's just me, always fighting. It's a daily battle. But then one day, this gentleman was a client, came to the office. They put him in one of the meeting rooms. And I was all excited to meet him because I had spoken with him on the phone, and he's going to have this huge reunion in Arlington, which he did. And I walked into the room, and I will never forget it. And it was right before the pandemic. It was 2019. And he looked at me before I could introduce myself. And he stopped me. He said, wait. No. I need to meet with the director of sales for Arlington, Virginia. How do you think that made me feel? All of you on phone, how do you think that made me feel? So I had a choice how to react to that. I could either act not so nice reaction, or I could smile. And I decided to do the latter. And I smiled at him and I looked around and I said, last time I recall, I am the director of sales for Arlington, Virginia. And I smiled. And he said, that can't be. So when that incident happened to me, I knew I was at the right place and I wasn't going anywhere, because then I knew that, it is my responsibility to keep doing what we're doing. And that's why we are doing all of this, because that still exists today. It has always existed. And the only way that's going to get better and the only way it's going to change is to what we're doing now.
And would you say as a result of that, there have been some major changes in the Arlington County Convention Visit where you're working right now, or you're seeing a lot more changes?
Absolutely. So the Arlington Convention and Visitor Service actually falls under Arlington County, which is actually, it turned out to be a good thing. Just 2 years ago, we started with DEI. The Arlington County manager brought in Chief Race and Equity Officer, Samia Bird. She's doing a wonderful job. That is her job, to get that going. It starts with leadership. Mm-hmm. If leadership buys in, I believe it trickles on down to all of the other divisions and the departments, and that's what's happening. And I think it is a beautiful thing. Now, we have a long way to go and a lot of work to do, but it is important to know that it has begun. So what has begun are the conversations, those uncomfortable conversations that we keep talking about, that now need to go into comfortable conversations, which I think that's what's happening, and now need to go into action. So as far as Arlington County, that is the direction we're moving. Things are being put into place. People are being put into positions. We have a lot of work to do. Absolutely.
And I think what I'm hearing you saying too is that by bringing in someone who could be a leader in this area, who was knowledgeable around DEI, it was looked upon by others in the organization positively, at least something that it was going to help all of them work on it together, that the organization was coming together behind this individual and you really putting into place a DEI program that was going to impact your culture.
Yes, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, that's why I said it early in another session, and I told Ronnie I would bring it up again. That's why it's so important even to have programs like what Travel Unity is offering, which is the CDTP program. For those that are not familiar, it's the Certified Diversity Travel Professional Program. Why it is so important is because even like us, when you have no idea, like I knew what we should be doing and where we should start, but if you're in an organization and you have no idea at all, and there's no roadmap at all, that's where you can start. So no one can say, well, there's nothing out there. I can't find anything. It's out there. It's definitely out there.
No, and I think what I'm hearing you say too, that I think is important right now is companies invest, organizations in strategic thinking and how to be more innovative. And, they look at all different areas on how to improve performance. And DEI is a business imperative, just like those, where companies will experience stronger profits, they will have better performance, and the staff teams will perform better. If you look at it, would you say as part of the business that you're in?
Absolutely. I mean, and that's been proven. I mean, you see all the data all the time about, you know, Blacks and the dollars, the billions of dollars that they bring. And that's not to be ignored. And that is always, I find, so surprising and incredibly disappointing that just because you don't, for whatever reason, you don't want to work with this one or that one. But look at all of that you're turning around, all of the opportunities, financial and tons of other reasons that is always surprising me. So yeah.
You know, I think that's different now. I think that when Joan was talking, when she was first in the travel industry, you know, in the 80s, when we worked with associations and companies, it was part of human resources initiatives. It was all around hiring practices, and companies, you know, just isolated it to HR instead of really thinking about DEI as part of the organization's whole culture. And I think that's really important, an important difference today in how organizations are incorporating it in with their employees and again with their customers. And really a lot of that is due to, I think, what's happened over the last several years, you know, in our environment and what's happening in our cities. And I know that, Joan, you wanted to share how your organization also has built upon, you know, what's happening today and using education and training to also further DEI with your organization.
Yeah, I think, Portia, I can actually relate a little bit. I'm not obviously a woman of color, but back in the 80s, when we go back that far, actually, I had the same experience that you had. And I pulled over, I was in a hotel and I pulled over a desk clerk, and because they demanded to see a manager. And I was slight. At the time, I wish I was now, I was about 100 pounds. And so he looked for the manager and was screaming, looking for someone. So I pulled over a desk clerk and I said, here's a gentleman, you can talk to him. And he was very kind. He looked at me and he said, you know, sir, that's very kind of you to let me know, but this woman right here, she's the one that's going to make that happen for you. So I do understand where you're coming from as far as that's concerned. So we've all been through, I think, different things as far as that's concerned, which has really brought me why I enjoy being a part of ITMI right now and being able to bring in as much as we can. So if I go back to that little girl that wanted to figure out travel, there was an awareness there that I just knew that was something, travel sounded cool. So I thought, okay, how do I do that? And there was no avenue to figure that out. There really weren't the tourism and hospitality courses. And even today, those courses really concentrate on hotel motel, which is what I ended up doing for a long time. Had I known that there was so much more to the industry that you can do and could do, I would have done so much more. I mean, obviously I sounded like I did a lot, and I did. I was very proud of the fact that I was able to find those avenues, from cruise ship to hotels to sales managers and all the rest. But I really go back to the pandemic has given us an opportunity to have a unified voice in the industry, and awareness to me is key. So we're working on some of those initiatives. And this last year we've hosted, I think we're up to 100 and something webinars where we did a lot of what would you do scenarios, because as you know, that there's a lot of things that have happened since Black Lives Matter. So we had a lot of conversations around that. And I think that's one of the key things that we did. We're also trying to do more in a global reach at this point. And we were the first school in the world to ever add human trafficking awareness into our curriculum. And we're pretty proud of that. So there's just a lot of different avenues that were done, and partnering with Tourism Cares. And I see Karen here, which is exciting as far as we're going to be training the very first. So Karen, you should tell me about that. And I shouldn't be the one telling what you're doing in your area.
You really want me to step in?
Yes, because I'm very
So
proud of what you're doing. So I think others can do the same, and I'm ready to champion that.
we reached out to ITMI because part of our refocusing the Cayuga County to position as Terry Tubman's chosen hometown, we had a focus group with avid Black travelers and Black tour operators. And one of the things that resonated is the fact that Black history tours come through our area quite often, but we don't have the assets, the talent to tell the story authentically. By that meaning, we don't have many Black docents, Black tour guides to step in and tell the story. And we were told by the operators that although we have very informed docents, that the visitors feel a little insulted. Why is this white person stepping onto the bus telling me my own history? So we went on a search, and we're sponsoring 3 scholarships to ITMI for Black proud individuals of our area who want to stand up and tell the story and be the representatives and the voice of the history that we have that is so important. So we have one approved scholarship that we just sent over to Joan, and we are still looking through the community to identify at least 2 more to participate for this year. Thank you, Joan.
Oh, sure. And that's exactly what we're looking for to do, is to get the awareness out there and get the education piece done, because it's so important that people are educated as far as what's happening. That's why we started the Travel Leadership Fundamentals course that Justin will be going through. And we added a DEI section. We're looking at adding a disability area as well for persons of disabilities, and in communications on those. So as many different ways as we can connect with people in the DEI world, we're working toward that.
That's great. And I know that for many of the travel organizations, they have initiatives in, as you're saying, workforce development and really bringing more individuals into travel and tourism than ever before. And I know, Portia, one of the things we talked about, and if we want to touch on the concept of workforce development and the different roles that we may have seen Black workers in hospitality or Hispanic in hospitality have typically been in just the service roles and not so much in management and leadership. And I think it's really important that they see themselves being in other roles and being in leadership roles. And I know, Portia, you wanted to comment on how we might be able to improve that and what we're seeing.
Well, we are, and I think a lot on this call, we're always talking about that. That is what we've always seen from the beginning of time. I mean, and it's across all the tour industry sector. It is, you go in a hotel, you'll see, people of color, they're wiping down, they're working the front desk, and it stops. You see the front desk manager come out, what do you see? You go up higher into management, the DOS, what do you see? This has been from the beginning of time. So this fight, this did not just start today. And that's why, I'm sort of always kind of in a different area with all of this, because this has been going on. And I think because of whatever we want to say it is, I'll take it. Whether we're saying it's the pandemic, which has given us all time to think about it, or the George Floyd, or whatever it is that has making us to just stop and rethink how we're operating, what we're doing. That's what we need to do. And I think if you think about it, I keep telling other jurisdictions, look, we're almost in a way restructuring and starting over. So use this opportunity that we are and incorporate some of these things. It's not hard to do. Even if you need to take baby steps, at least you can say you're doing something. It's better than doing nothing. You always should be moving forward. And the thing, I want to get across today is you can't do it by yourself. So the key is it's all of us doing it together, right? So it's just not, we talked earlier about the DMOs. Well, it's the DMOs, it's the CVBs, it's SYTA, it's NTA. So it's all of our associations, our organizations. And Catherine, yes, I am going to mention you. Catherine, who was on this call with NTA, president of NTA. I have to give a shout out to her. She was one of the first that reached out to me sidebar just to have a conversation about this, period. We've been on the phone several times for hours, just talking about what can we do? Where can we move this? So much so, we developed, along with myself, there's an NTA, it's a diversity team. We have a committee, it's an advisory board. That is what we do once a month. We talk about membership. We talk about the mission statement. We look at all of these things, and that's where it starts. If those things do not happen, nothing will change. We've talked about that for years. Right now, I can feel it talking to others. The attractions, all of them working together, trying to make that change. Arlington National Cemetery, Women's Memorial, they are taking a step back and they are looking at the stories that they're telling. They're going back and they're looking at the stories and they're saying, am I telling the entire story? Sometimes it has not been the entire story. They've told a story that they want you to hear. Something that's nice, tea time, that sort of thing. No, tell the whole story. And when they say, well, Portia, why is that so important to tell the whole story? Because our children have to hear that. All of these visitors need to hear that, because we want you to know what happened, to know that we never want to go back there again. That's why you tell those stories, because everyone needs to know what happened. I know some people disagree with that. That's the way it is. And so it's all of those different areas working together. I talked to Stephanie Jones, who's going to be in the next hour, talking about, tours and tour guides. We talk about, well, CVBs, I'm a CVB, we don't really understand the power that we have when you're coming in contact with visitors, group leaders. It's fine to work with the big companies, but don't forget about the mom and pop companies. They're just as good. There's no differences there. Don't forget about them. Give them some love too. So that's what we're trying to do more of. Tons of them out there. People say, oh, they're not there. Yes, they are. They are there. You just have to look. You have to look. Reach out to other folks that can help you. But we need to share that. That's equity. That's where that comes in. And the thing is, we're able to do it if we want to do it. There's nothing stopping us from doing it. We just have to say we're going to do it.
And I think, what you shared that I think is important with many of our colleagues in the industry and the different associations. And I was excited to hear what NTA is doing. I would say SYTA is very similar in that we have a task force looking at DEI and sustainability. And from a organizational perspective, we have, as you mentioned, we have an important role to play as leaders. So, as associations, we don't want to just start a task force that's over here. It needs to be a part of the board and the strategy. And we have been working with Travel Unity and a coalition of other associations on, is there a model that we can put in place that addresses this from an organizational perspective that we could share with other associations? So, looking at board practices, how is your board? How are your leaders selected? Does it reflect your membership? Are we listening to our members and having those conversations? Are we identifying all of the voices that we represent? And so looking at it from our diversity statements, our strategic planning, our board, our committees, our volunteers, and then is it across all the channels in the organization? So it's part of membership. Is it in the conferences? Do we have a variety of speakers at our conferences? Looking at, just like you explained, all of the different areas that we impact, and knowing that it's going to be a journey and that it's important to get started. And I think what you also brought up was some of us were afraid to have that honest conversation. Mm-hmm. And I'm thankful to you and Stephanie and many who are willing to help us have the honest conversation and to help us talk about it in a way that is open and transparent. And I think is so important in a membership organization.
And so one more point to that, these conversations, and they're wonderful, they're lovely, that we're having. but it's also time for us to put all of this in action.
Yes.
And that's what I'm constantly talking to people. This is not, people say, oh, this is just, this is a fad. Everybody's jumping on this and this is going away tomorrow. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's really not. And so, we all together need to use this opportunity to move this forward. I won't take up much more time, but I just want to say this. CVBs and DMOs, I've talked about this for years. You read, if you go to a website and you read on the left-hand side, we're welcoming, we're inclusive, we're welcoming to all. And then on the right-hand side, from the top of the page to the bottom of the page, what do you see? Just take a guess. What do you see? You want to take a guess? You see all pictures of white people from top to the bottom. So how can you say on the left-hand side that you're welcoming and inclusive to all, and that's what you show on the whole set? That does not match. So it has to match. And when we talk about DEI, it's not just black and white. It's these websites, and they're doing a better job. These attractions and these DMOs is our responsibility. You need accessibility for these attractions. They shouldn't have to dig. Someone who's physically challenged should not have to dig through a website to find their section of how they maneuver around a certain attraction, right? It should be front and center. It should be front and center where they can see it. That's just one example. If you're inclusive, you need to find that imagery and show that. And don't tell me I can't find it. I've tried. You can buy stock photos until you can get a photographer to go get some pictures and get some imagery and place it on your. So I'm the last person to tell me what you can't find and what you can't see and what you can't do. I'm not buying that. So I'm just going to put that out there. But it's those kind of things. Those are action items. Those are things that can be done today. They can be done within an hour. So when folks tell me that kind of stuff, it just makes me shiver, because that's things that can happen right now. But you'd be surprised at a lot of organizations, you have no clue. So my thing is, stop saying one thing and showing another. People want to see themselves. You're really doing yourself a disservice when you're not showing a melting pot. You really are. You really, really are. And I stand firm on that. But that is getting better. I'm always on different websites, and I see associations that are doing it. I see CVBs that are doing it. So people are listening, but we have to keep that moving forward, and we have to do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really good.
Oh, sorry.
Portia,
I agree with that. I think really, honestly, it comes back to educating that this is a real industry that you can be a part of and you can make money with. And in the past, I've been in the industry for 40 years. And so I can tell you on cruise ships, there's much more diversity when I was on board. And I think in hotels, motels, I don't know if they're, you're correct as far as the housekeeping staff is concerned and all the rest. I just think the education piece needs to come back in. And that's why we're spending so much time in building those e-courses and in building those live trainings. We did a private session with one of the top tour operators on DEI with Dr. Anu. I'm sure you probably know her, Tara Newth. And we did, it was a full education. It's more of a conversation that has to happen. And that's why our study halls were so important to us, because they were able to talk with each other instead of, one way, because it really needs to be a teacher there teaching, and then you being able to reflect back. And that's why so many of our courses, there's a lot of assignments that we're always talking back with them, and we're also live with them. So that piece is very important to me. And that's why what we do is important, and looking at it from people, and you're absolutely right. There isn't enough out there for people being able to share and understand how to work with people with disabilities. How do you work? How are you a companion? There's tour operators out there that are doing fantastic jobs in selling to that market. But I know personally, that's what I'm going to be working on, is having tour directors and tour guides being able to understand how to work with that market.
Mm-hmm. In another area too, Carylann, one more thing is the hiring, the hiring panels. That's been a big topic just across the board. And a lot of folks will say, well, you know, I try to hire, you know, different people or people of color. And, you know, but where are you looking? Are you just posting on LinkedIn and Indeed? Or are you actually looking at universities if you're looking for an intern? They have reader boards everywhere. They have weekly news, e-newsletters. They have physical papers that they have. So, you know, it is work, but you can do it and you can find it. So it's just not about LinkedIn and Indeed. There are other ways that you can do that. So I wanted to mention that as well.
Yeah, and I think also when you talk about those hiring practices, what was important to me and our team was, you know, and being based in Washington, D.C., the sense that you had to have a college degree in order to apply for positions, and to look at a broader workforce, and to look at the fact that not everyone may have had that 4-year opportunity, but look at work history, look at the organizations they belong to, look at the whole person and what they can bring to your organization. And I'm seeing more of a shift, which I think is exciting, for more technical skills, you know, 2-year universities, community colleges, really opening up the opportunities broader to bring more into our organizations, and not just look at that 4-year degree at this university as the benchmark, but for all of us to be much more open about those we bring in, and also our responsibility as membership organizations to be sure that we're giving everyone equal access to our organization. So if we're a trade association of businesses, that we're being equitable to everyone who could be in that industry and be a part of us, and not to make it just based on a financial obligation or years in business, because how are we going to let new entrepreneurs get started if we have restrictions for joining, and restrictions that might be keeping out certain populations? And I see that organizations are really looking at their requirements and what it takes to be a part of that industry, so that it's much more transparent. And I think that's another part of what we can do in our industry, the one that we represent.
I think that's a good point, Caroline, because I was talking to Karen. There's BOCES organizations that are in different parts. BOCES just happens to be in New York, but that's where I grew up in upstate New York, so that's kind of why I know that. But there's different organizations that are out there, and you're right. I think in the past, people needed to think they had to have a 4-year degree and they had to have all these certifications and all the rest of it. But really, a graduate from high school, I can tell you there's so many that have done fantastic work out there in the world by uniting and building bridges, which is really what we're here to do, build bridges to cultures and traditions. And that's why I'm excited to have partnered with NTA this year to have all tour directors and tour guides coming into it. Anyone that wants to be a part of that, to learn more and understand more. And they'll have opportunities that I know that I wish I had. So I'm very excited to have that come forward. So I just want to thank Catherine for letting us do that. And I know Carylann someday with SYTA will make that happen as well. So yeah.
No, I appreciate you bringing that up, but I also wanted to ask for those on the call with us this afternoon, if there are other things that your organization that you're a part of is doing, we'd love to hear from you. You're welcome to speak up, or if you wanted to post something in the chat, if there's, you know, if you're a member of another organization or you're working in your company on some of these initiatives and you wanted to share that with us, we're happy to hear that. We have a little bit more time yet, so we'd like to open it up and hear from you as well.
I can share a couple things that I'm doing with Travel Unity, actually. So first off, there's a session on Friday that I'm a part of, which is finding talent in what's the actual name of that session?
Expected places and unexpected fields.
Yeah, that's right. So it's all about, you know, how do you go out and find talent outside of the normal recruitment process, typical recruitment process. So we'll have some information on that, and women in travel is going to be featured in that. And then secondly, I've been working with Ronnie on developing a diversity job marketplace that'll sit within Travel Unity, which will be basically a job board with some programs around it that'll help diverse job seekers find employers looking for diverse people to hire. And it will span all aspects of diversity in all sectors within the travel industry. And to the earlier point that was made here, not just entry-level positions, but entry-level on all the way up to the C-suite. So that's exciting, and there will be more information coming out about that over the next few months as we get it ready for launch.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think what as we finish up, when we talk about what the tourism industry is doing, at least from an organizational perspective, we're all looking at leadership. We're looking at our governance structures. We're looking at our membership requirements and how people engage with us. We're also seeing a role that we can play in workforce development and how we can introduce more to employment within our industry. And then I think we all, I'm hearing from a leadership perspective, have to step up and actually take action and put it into play. We spend a lot of time in meetings and talking. That's part of the association experience, but I think action is really important now, and our members expect us to act and to build on what we say we're going to do. And I think that's a real commitment from many of the associations that I've seen partnering and working together. And for those of you on the call today, I appreciate that work. Burkita?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
I would like to say that, so I chair the hospitality management program at Virginia State University. And this is a narrative that I've been hearing since when I was an undergraduate student studying hospitality management. And I would like to say that I am really happy to hear the conversation, but I know through my lens as a program chair, looking to have my students have careers in this and not tap out in 18 months because they don't see a path for them to have a lifelong career. I welcome any dialogue and anyone that is serious about what I call untapped talent, because that is exactly what it is. It is untapped talent. Students have the work ethic, they have the passion. But one of the things that I experience oftentimes is, I'll get I will receive a random email, we're looking for this, and then the conversation just ends. And I just want to appeal, follow through, even if it's not something you can move forward with a hire, use it as a teachable moment. We're open to feedback, well, this student wasn't a good fit for this, but maybe this, because I know personally our students have to do 2 internships. I'm always looking for opportunities for them, and they come from all across, everywhere. And it can become discouraging on our side when we're trying to get them to go into this industry and, stay the course, and they look around and they don't see, that it may be something that's worth it. And they're human, at some point, they go to Amazon and work.
Yeah.
To be totally honest with you, they find different paths. And so the challenge becomes on the flip side, there is not that pipeline that we need if we're going to change the narrative, but it has to start somewhere. And I'm always open, to provide any feedback I can, but I have a lot of untapped talent, and I have colleagues at other universities, that feel the same. And so thank you for this conversation. This has been great, but as Greg DeShields always says, what's next? I'm looking for what's next. That's what I'm looking for.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because I know that what you're sharing is maybe not what everybody thinks is the case, and that you do offer us these opportunities to reach many in the field, whether it's through internships or, like you just said, the conversations we can have about our different industries. And I think tourism, there's so many different kinds of jobs in tourism, from working with student travel to tour guiding to leading to building a tour operator business, which I know we're going to talk about in the next session. So thank you again for bringing that up, that as Portia said, we can make a difference, we can do something, and don't assume that we've tried everything.
And I would welcome any conversation.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
We have a lot of different avenues. We have entrepreneur programs. We help people find employment. So I am happy to have a conversation with anyone because we're looking for people. As you know, that with the pandemic, I think we lost about 50% of the workforce out there. So, and I think there's a lot of jobs out there that people can have.
If I can add something, Carylann?
Yeah, for sure, please.
Two things I wanted to respond to Burkita. Good to see you again, Burkita. Second, one thing is we have the Black Tourism Talent Directory, blacktourismtalent.com, that was created for Black students who are looking to be matched with employment opportunities. And we have a lot of opportunities, industry brands that are posting their opportunities through the Black Tourism Talent Directory. It's free for students to create a profile and to upload their resumes. So that's one resource I want to offer to you. So please reach out so I can share more information about that. Secondly, we're having this precise conversation. I serve on the U.S. Travel and Tourism Advisory Board and on the employment subcommittee as we are working to make recommendations around labor shortages in the industry. And Burkita, I would love to invite you to come speak at one of our subcommittee meetings to make the point you just made to our committee. So if that's something you're interested in, can you please email me? I sent you my email, okay?
Okay, thank you, absolutely. Anything I can do, absolutely.
Awesome, thank you. And
Thank you so much.
Last question, if I can, Joan and Karen. I wanted to learn a little more about the scholarship program that you were referring to about is it scholarships for existing tour guides and tour operators, or are you looking to find individuals to train to be tour guides of Black history?
B. We're looking for, so we're located in Auburn, New York, the chosen home of Harriet Tubman, and we're looking for individuals to tell that story. So we are starting our search with local individuals that are part of the community. There's a lot of untapped talent, as was very well phrased by Burkita, that we're trying to find and elevate and train them. Yeah, I was asked by a couple individuals, so what is the requirements? Do you need college graduations? Like, no, you just need to be, and I'll put it boldly, among peers who understand this language, you need to be Black and proud. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for individuals who want to tell proudly the story of a fantastic individual. So yes, we're looking to identify 3 individuals to put through the scholarship for us to sponsor the program through ITMI to become well-talented tour guides. I mentioned to Joan briefly when we had the conversation about this, I don't want them to go away. I'm looking to build the talent here. You know, they have like an 80% placement rate out of all the individuals that go through the program, but we're looking to build the talent here. And I'll also mention it because it was brought up. What the long-term goal of this program is to grow the talent and encourage tour operator businesses to get started here by the individuals who have gone through this program, by the individuals who understand the history, and to get more talented business owners in the tourism industry in our county.
Where are you located again?
Auburn, New York, in the Finger Lakes region of New York State.
Okay. I'd love to connect with you to talk to you about programs we already have in existence so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But the other thing, who's going to be training these tour guides?
Initially, ITMI, as far as being tour guides, the talent behind it. And as far as the story, the knowledge, the content, we work with the Harriet Tubman National Heritage Park right here in Auburn, New York. We have the Harriet Tubman Home. So we have a lot of regional talent that will be developing a lot of the content of our knowledge.
Okay, and then once those tour guides are in place, then we can help you sell those, curate those itineraries and sell them.
Let's talk. Karen@tourcayuga.com.
And Stephanie, I think you're going to be in Cleveland, right?
Yes, I'll be at NTA.
So I will see you there. So
Awesome.
we can talk a little bit more. So
Okay,
as I
and
know we're
Karen, if you
running
can
out of time.
email me your email, that would be great, or put it in chat, that would be great.
Thank
Ronnie
you.
did it for me. He put it on there. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Ronnie.
I think that's a perfect lead into the next session that we'll, just looking at the time. And again, I just want to thank both Portia and Joan for sharing their experience with us. And I'm really excited about these opportunities and just these conversations and taking the time to connect people. That's what our organizations do. And that's why we belong to organizations and we volunteer. And that's, I think, a major reason to be a part of these kinds of organizations. And thank you again to Ronnie and the team at Travel Unity for including us in this session. And I'll hand it off to the next session.